Did you know that last year, a survey found that 73% of homeowners in the US regret buying their homes? And among Gen Z and Millennials, that number is even higher. So why do so many people still believe that owning a home is the ultimate symbol of success? Shouldn't it be the smartest financial decision one can make? Well, the truth is, not always. In reality, the system is designed to keep most people trapped in an endless cycle of debt. And, of course, banks don't want you to know this because they make billions from this scheme. Today, we're going to expose the biggest scam in personal finance, the mortgage system. We'll explain why buying a house might not be the best choice, how banks profit from your debt, and, most importantly, how you can break free from this system. The homeownership fairy tale. Let's imagine a young couple who believes they are about to make the smartest financial decision of their lives. They've saved for years, skipped dining out, given up travel, and worked extra shifts just to save money. They did everything right, and finally, the big day has arrived. Today, they're making the down payment on their first home. All their lives, they've heard that this would be the best decision possible, that owning a home would be the foundation for all their dreams. So, they walk into the bank, nervous and excited, and that's where they meet the manager. He greets them with a big smile, shakes their hands, congratulates them, and tells them they're taking a big step toward the future. Soon, they'll have a piece of the world to call their own. Then, he slides a contract across the table. It's a 30-year mortgage. As they start reading, the interest rate seems reasonable. The monthly payments seem to fit their budget, and who knows? Maybe the property will appreciate in the future since it's in a promising neighborhood. But right now, the only thing that truly matters to them is one thing: owning a home. The bank manager then reassures them. Don't worry about a thing. Just make your payments, and this will be the best financial decision of your lives. And besides, think of all the memories you'll create here. They sign. And just like that, they officially become homeowners. The manager shakes their hands once more, walks them to the door with a confident smile, and as soon as they leave, he calls in another couple to repeat the same process. Fast forward 10 years, and the manager doesn't seem so cheerful anymore. Now, what really matters to him is that the payments keep coming in. Those monthly installments that once seemed affordable. Life has a funny way of making things complicated. Raising kids isn't cheap, and they love getting into trouble. Last year, Sally decided to give the walls a fresh coat of paint. Bobby, on the other hand, used the windows as his baseball training ground. Who knows what they'll come up with next? Meanwhile, property taxes have only gone up, and everything, from groceries to gas to health insurance, has gotten much more expensive. There have been a few raises over the years, of course, but the reality is that expenses have grown far more than income. Now, the couple faces an urgent change. And this is where the perfect storm forms: a new baby on the way and a once-in-a-lifetime job offer, in a city across the country. The decision is terrifying. But they decide to take the risk, put the house up for sale expecting a good profit, and start planning their new life. The problem arises when, after crunching the numbers post-sale, things don't add up, or rather, they add up in an unexpected way. Between renovations, realtor commissions, inspections, and the fact that, technically, the bank still owns most of the house, they end up with nothing. Not a single cent. And the nightmare is just beginning. The couple has no money to buy another home, and rent prices in the new city are insanely high. Their only option is to move into a tiny apartment, where 2 kids and a newborn share a single bathroom, because that's all they can afford. Before, the kids had a backyard to play in. Now, they're crammed into a concrete box, listening to their stressed-out parents argue all the time, desperately trying to make things work. And what about the bank manager in their old city? He's already collected his commissions, profited from the interest, and is doing just fine. He's still sitting behind his desk, shaking hands with new couples, selling the exact same dream. Unfortunately, this isn't just this couple's story. It reflects the reality of millions of people. Homeownership is sold as one of the pillars of financial security. After all, it's the American dream, right? But over 70% of Americans say they regret buying a home. For millennials and Gen Z, that number reaches 90%. These people feel like the system has betrayed them. And in truth, the system has failed. The harsh reality is that, for most people, mortgages are designed from the start to trap them in an endless cycle of debt. And honestly, once you understand how this system really works, you can't unsee it. The problem is that most people only realize how flawed it is when it's too late, when they're already trapped in it. But how does this happen? How do so many people buy homes, make their payments, and still end up with nothing? To understand this, we need to break down how mortgages actually work and why they exist in the first place. Mortgages 101. Once upon a time, if you wanted to buy a house, you had to make one massive payment. No loans, no mortgages, none of that. But let's be honest, most people don't have that kind of money lying around. That's when banks came up with a solution, the mortgage. Instead of paying hundreds of thousands of dollars all at once, a mortgage allows you to spread that amount over decades, making homeownership seem more accessible and affordable. In theory, it sounds like a great deal. And when done correctly, as we'll explore later, both the bank and the buyer can benefit. But unfortunately, in most cases, mortgages generate massive profits for banks, while everyday people end up feeling like they've been deceived. So, let's break down how this system actually works. Most people believe that when they take out a mortgage, they're simply borrowing money to buy a house and paying it back with a small amount of interest. But the reality is quite different. A mortgage isn't just an ordinary loan, it's a sophisticated financial scheme. This type of financing is a contract designed to benefit the bank, not you. If you don't fully understand how it works, you'll be committing to a long-term deal where, inevitably, you end up losing. Let's simplify this with some rounded numbers. To keep things easy, let's set aside the down payment, okay? Imagine you buy a $100,000 house with a 10% annual interest rate on a 30-year mortgage. You might think, 10% interest? That means I'll pay a total of $110,000, right? Wrong. After 30 years of paying this mortgage, the total amount paid will be over $300,000, 3 times the original price of the house. But how is that possible? It happens because of a mechanism called amortization. Remember, you're not actually buying your house. The bank buys it and lets you live in it while you pay back the loan. With each monthly payment, the amount you owe the bank decreases, and the portion of the house that truly belongs to you, your equity, grows. But this is where things start to get tricky. Your mortgage payment, the one you make every month, is actually split into 2 parts. One part goes toward the principal. This is the amount that actually reduces your debt and increases your ownership of the house. The other part goes toward interest. This is the bank's profit. But here's the catch. At the beginning of the loan, almost all of your payment goes toward interest. Let's say your monthly payment is $1,000. In the first few years, only $100 of that amount actually reduces your debt. The other $900 goes straight to the bank. By the end of the first year, you will have paid the bank $10,000 in interest, but you'll still owe $98,400 on the house. And the following year? You'll pay 10% interest on that remaining balance. This happens because a mortgage interest rate applies to the outstanding balance each year. So, even though you're paying the same $1,000 monthly installment, at the beginning, almost all of it goes toward interest. Only after many years does the amount going toward the principal start to increase. During the first 10 to 15 years of a 30-year mortgage, your debt hardly decreases. You keep paying 10% on a huge balance, which explains why, in the end, you may end up paying 3 times the price of the house before truly owning it. Sounds crazy, right? But this is just the beginning. Now let's see how things can get even worse. A mortgage is a long-term financial contract. The most common term is 30 years. But most people don't stay in the same house for 30 years. In fact, they don't even stay for 20. The average time a homeowner stays in a house is 13 years. And if you've been paying attention so far, you've probably already noticed the problem. After 13 years of paying a 30-year mortgage, the person still owes most of the house's value. And when they decide to sell, they realize that almost all the money paid went toward interest, not the house itself. After 13 years of paying the mortgage, the bank still owns most of the house. The homeowner has paid tens of thousands of dollars, but almost all of it has been profit for the bank in the form of interest. That means when this house is sold, the bank takes practically everything. The worst part? Most people simply buy another house, take out another 30-year mortgage, and restart the cycle. And that's exactly what the banks want. Because the real scam isn't just the absurd amount of interest paid over the years. The problem is that most people never reach the end of their mortgage. They keep moving, get new loans, and pay interest forever, without ever building real equity. Meanwhile, the banks get incredibly rich from this game. But hold on, it gets worse. Selling your house can be a financial disaster. Imagine you bought a $100,000 house with a 30-year mortgage and decide to sell it after 13 years. At this point, you've already paid over 150 installments. But guess how much you still owe the bank? $86,000. Yes, you read that right. Over a decade of payments and there's still almost the full amount owed. Now, let's say you managed to sell the house for the same price you bought it for, $100,000. The bank gets $86,000, leaving you with only $14,000. But selling a house isn't simple. You'll need to pay realtor commission, closing costs, taxes, moving expenses, repairs. In the end, if you walk away with a few $1,000s in your pocket, you can consider yourself lucky. Now, imagine an even worse scenario. If the house sells for $85,000 but you still owe $86,000, you'll have to cover the difference out of pocket. And after all the fees and costs, you could end up with a major loss. Remember, $100,000 for a house today is nearly nothing. In practice, that debt can easily exceed hundreds of thousands of dollars. Unfortunately, this type of situation happens frequently. How to make the home purchase work? The problem is that most people don't understand how the system really works, ending up trapped in contracts that benefit the bank far more than themselves. Does that mean mortgages are always bad? No. In fact, when used correctly, they can make buying a home more accessible and secure, and also be a good investment. So, let's share 5 essential rules that can help you avoid the biggest mistakes and make the most of your money. First of all, it's worth remembering, this is not financial advice, but if you're thinking of buying a house, take these tips seriously. 1. The longer the mortgage, the more you pay in interest. Banks make more profit when you take decades to pay off the house. If possible, avoid 30-year mortgages and opt for 15 or even 10-year terms. Your monthly payments will be higher, but in the long run, you'll save a fortune in interest. 2. Never buy a house without a down payment. If you finance 100% of the value, you start with no equity and paying even more interest. The ideal is to make at least a 20% down payment. 3. Consider the total cost of living in the house, not just the mortgage payment. Owning a home involves more than just paying the mortgage payment. There are property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and repairs. Ignoring these costs is a mistake. Also, don't fool yourself into thinking the value of the house will always rise. The real estate market can stagnate, decline, or even collapse, as it did in 2008. If you're going to buy a house to live in, do it because it fits your lifestyle, not because you think it will make you wealthy. Finally, buy a house only if you plan to live in it for at least 10 to 15 years. If not, you won't build real equity and will remain trapped in a cycle of debt. If you see yourself moving constantly, renting may be a more advantageous option. In summary, owning a home is just a tool. It can help you build wealth or destroy it, depending on how you use it. And remember, buying a home is just one of many milestones in your financial journey. The truth about financial mistakes. The reason people make costly mistakes, like taking 50-year mortgages, yes, they exist, is that they never learned essential financial skills. School never taught you how to negotiate a mortgage, invest in stocks, or start a business, even though these skills are crucial to making the difference between struggling to survive and achieving true financial success. Let's be honest, no one teaches you this. If you're ready to take control of your financial life and avoid falling into the traps of mortgages, it's time to learn the skills that truly make a difference. Subscribe to our channel for more tips on how to build true wealth, avoid financial mistakes, and make smart decisions for your future. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and family so everyone can break free from the debt cycle and achieve a healthy financial life.